live. There are not going to be any pattern alterations. There are not going to be any sewing tips or tricks. I'm going to get a little personal and talk about my tattoos. Now, it's something that it's just a part of me, so I don't think about it on a day in and day out, or a day in and day out basis, but I do get a lot of questions about it. You know, what do they mean? And usually when I meet somebody, they like lift up my hand, they're like, what does that say? And I'm like, excuse me, can you please put my arm down? But I guess because it's vertical, they want to see it, whatever. So I'm going to talk about everything. My tattoos, all my tattoos are related to sewing. And I'm going to kind of walk through all of them, and they do tell a story. My first one that I have, though, I can't really show it. I'm wearing a jumpsuit here, but it's actually, no, it's right here. I'm looking at the camera. It's actually on my hip, and it is Dorothys Shoe. So first I want to go into the first one that I ever got. And I was not the tattoo type either. When I was a teenager, I was much more of like piercings. So I had like 7 holes in my ears. I had 7 on this side and like 5 on this side. My belly button pierced. My mom hated it. She was like, get rid of it. But I kept it, you know, teenager. So I was not the tattoo type. But when my mom passed away, that New Year's after she passed away in April, and the week that she passed away, she started singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Judy Garland from Wizard of Oz, and that's where she said she was going. The last week that she was alive, she wasn't really cognizant. Hospice was at our house, and they were pumping her with a bunch of steroids and just everything to kill the pain. So she wasn't there, but she was, and she just kept singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow and saying that's where she was going. So that's actually one of my favorite movies. And so I remember it was New Year's Day that I got the tattoo for Dorothys Shoes. And that's a way for her to always be a part of me and just to remember her. And so that was like the first one that I got when I was 18. And I didn't get another one until I was, I think, 25. And my first one was this guy right here. And at the bottom, it's like a floral motif. Let me see if I can get it here. It's this one. It started off as this one, and it's a floral motif, and it says Mishka on the bottom. Now, all of these were done by, except for the writing, which was done by a calligrapher, all of these were design team, and she did some really awesome prints, and we kind of connected. She ended up moving to London, but she's a very talented artist. So she drew all of the floral motifs, which I'll get to that, because she actually drew on my arm when I was in London, and then I brought it back, and I got the tattoo here. So Mishka. I know maybe some of you have heard me talk about Mishka. So when I started sewing, actually, when I was in high school, teenager, 16, 17, Mishka was our local tailor. And she worked at a tailor shop, and she was just always, excuse my language, but batshit crazy. I met her when I was 83 years old, and she would always, she altered my prom dress, which is on that rack over there. And she was just always like this crazy lady, full of life. You know, she would go through ups and downs and cry and laugh and scream. But again, she was 83 years old. She really didn't give a, excuse my French, fuck about anything. She just lived the life the way that she wanted, and I respected her for that. So I met her through doing my alterations for me throughout high school. And then when my mom passed away and I discovered her sewing machine, and I wanted to learn how to sew, I took it to her and I said, Mishka, I want to learn how to sew. And she said, you really want to learn how to sew? I think she was so like taken aback that someone who was younger actually had an interest in sewing. I know that when I meet anybody who is older and sews, and I tell them that I sew like every single day of my life, they're like, what? And then we usually get into a long conversation, and there goes Maddie. She's talking over there about sewing. So she was really excited about me wanting to learn how to sew, and she really took me under her wing. And she became a mother figure when I had just lost one. So I could, when I was 18 to 21, if someone asked me where I was at Mishka's. I was always there, just hanging out. I would just sit there and then just wait till customers come in and until she, wanted something. And I worked completely for free. She paid me maybe twice, and I would just sit in her how to sew. And she taught me. She taught me everything that I knew. She was an awesome sewist, but she was a terrible pattern maker. So people always ask me, like, how are you so good at pattern making? And it was because of Mishka. A customer would come in and they would say, I want to make this. I remember Julia Roberts' black dress in Pretty Woman. This customer came in and wanted to remake that dress, and Mishka was like, no problem, awesome, yeah, we could do that. What lace do you want? What, we can do anything for you, Mrs. Whatever. And the customer left, and I remember she looked at me, she's like, you got all that? And she's like, because you're doing the pattern. She's like, and you're going to Rex Fabrics in Miami and getting the fabric. And I was like, okay, Mishka. So she really took me under her wing and taught me everything that I knew, everything that I know about sewing. I had like the best foundation. She worked for Kristen Dior. She worked for Adrian in Hollywood. She was the toughest teacher too. Again, she was 83 years old. She didn't give about anything. I remember the first time that I sewed a sleeve into an armhole, she ripped it out, and I was like, oh my God, I just spent like 2 hours easing that and then pinning it and then putting it in the armhole, and you just ripped it out because she didn't like it. So, and the best way that I can put her into like a metaphor or story. If you've ever seen the movie Big Fish, so Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite movies, another one is Big Fish, because Edward Bloom's father reminds me of Mishka, in that when I met her, she would have all these lavish stories about these children. I've never met them, but she had children. And she, had stories of her working in factories when she was younger, and having stories of knowing Kristen Dior and knowing Adrian. And I honestly was just like, she's just making stuff up at this point. And then when she passed away, in the movie, when the father passes away, all the people from the story show up at the funeral. Ooh, I'm getting goosebumps. And when Mishka passed away, all those stories, the people from her stories actually came out, some of them. And she was a Baroness of Monaco. She did work for Kristen Dior. She did work for Adrian. She did have children. So it was just so amazing looking back that I had that experience, and I just fell into her life. So when she passed away, I asked Nikki Pasterfield, who was the painter, to paint a floral motif and then have her name spelled with a Y and not an I. I always spelled it M-I-S-H-K-A. It was actually M-Y-S-H-K-A. That was just Mishka. So when she passed away, I got a tattoo for her as a tribute to her being, a mother figure in my life, and then also teaching me everything that I knew about sewing, because sewing is basically my life. The other ones is, so this saying right here is from The Scarlet Letter, Hester Prynne. It reads, women derive a pleasure incomprehensible to the other sex from the delicate toil of a needle. So that really resonated with me, because Hester Prynne obviously was shunned from, her community, but through sewing in the book, she kind of finds a new, she doesn't become a sewist, but she finds a new identity through sewing, and I feel like when my mom passed away and through all the transformations that I made and changes that I've made in my life, you know, I've always had sewing there to fall back on. And it's just been great to have it in my life, and I feel super grateful that I have it, you know, I can do this for a living and make money and feel fulfilled and passionate and all that stuff. So that was done by a calligrapher, and it features like, or it has like different types of font. It's like a cursive, and then it's like a block font on it. All the flower motifs, so were done by Nikki Pasterfield. And though that was actually an interesting story, because she did this one, I believe, if I recall correctly, when she was still living in Philadelphia. And then she moved back to London, and I still wanted her to do all the floral motifs. So I was like, Nikki, I'm actually teaching in London. Do you want to come to the class, and then you can draw on my arm? And then I'll come back, we can transfer it to paper, and then when I come back to Philly, I'll get it. So when I taught in London, New Craft House, I want to say in May 2016. It was May 21st and May 22nd. She came to the class, and during lunch, or maybe it was after, we sat down and she drew on my arm the placement and then transferred it to paper. And then when I got back here to Philly, I went to a local tattoo artist, and he painted, or he tattooed it on. And then the last part of so this actually took like 2 years to do. So this was Mishka, and then like, I want to say like 6 months later, within the year, I did this. And then maybe like a year later, I did this. And I actually kept adding to it because I didn't like it. I didn't like this, and then I didn't, so I wanted to add to it, so I added this. And then I was like, I need things around it, so I added the flowers. Because, you know, tattoos are just one of those things that you can't really get rid of. So it's here. So I had to work with what I had. So when I was in London, I came back, and the last part that I added was the stars. So if you can see, I have stars here, here, all along here. And they're like they're really scattered. This one right here, oh my God, that hurts so bad right there. The skin is so delicate right there. That probably hurt the worst. Yeah, it did hurt. It just, once I did this, I used a tiny needle. This didn't hurt. That hurt. When they do the shading, it really hurts. So the stars mean, so there have been moments in my life, and I'm not a religious person, but I am a spiritual person. And there have been times in my life when I've looked back and I've said, the stars aligned in ways that I don't know of. And I don't know if it was my mom above, I don't know if it was Mishka above, playing the card, or they were playing chess and just moving the pieces in the right direction. The stars have aligned in ways in my life that is unexplainable. You know, sometimes I think, like, if I wasn't standing in line getting coffee that one Monday, and the creative director of Urban Outfitters saw me, made bodysuit, and asked me to do a collection with them, what if I hadn't gone and gotten coffee that morning? So things like that, and the way that things have played out in my life, again, the stars have aligned in ways that I can't explain, but I know that there is someone above kind of helping me out and guiding me along the way. And so those are what the stars mean. Again, I'm not a religious person, but I am spiritual, and I just think that there's someone above watching over me and kind of guiding me in the right direction. It's kind of having that faith that things will work out. The stars will come together and work out in ways just as they should. So stop worrying, Maddie. So that's the story of my tattoos. Now, I do want to get another one, because again, I am getting married in 3 weeks, and I want to get a tattoo of something that represents Ryan and I the day that we get married. We were supposed to get married in Hawaii, but due to 2020 and COVID-19, we actually had to scratched those plans like 4 weeks ago, and I am now planning a whole new wedding here in Philly in 6 weeks' time. So yeah, that's why I've been a little busy. So I've actually reached out to Nikki and asked her to do another design that kind of symbolizes Ryan and I the day that we get married. That's TBD, because she did draw something, but it had Hawaiian flowers, so that's not gonna work anymore. So we gotta kind of switch it up and change it up. So that's the story of my tattoos. And I said 2 years ago that I didn't want any more, and here I am wanting more. So I don't know. But the more things that happen to me in my life, you know, I want. So, and you know, some people ask me like, are you worried that, or what do you think it will look like when you get older? I see older people with tattoos, and I actually think they're really beautiful. I think that the way that they age and the way that skin ages is really awesome. So I'm not worried about it aging over time or fading over time.